The USS Meridian hummed with the steady rhythm of deep space travel as Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison made his way through the narrow corridors of the heavy cruiser. His boots echoed against the polished deck plates, each step measured and purposeful despite the late hour. The ship's night cycle had begun 2 hours ago, but Morrison found sleep elusive when his mind churned with tactical problems and crew evaluations. At 34, Morrison had earned his reputation as one of the fleet's most demanding officers. His dark eyes missed nothing, from a slightly wrinkled uniform to an improperly stowed piece of equipment. The crew respected him, though few would call him approachable. He demanded excellence because space offered no second chances for mediocrity. The Meridian was returning from a successful patrol mission in the Outer Rim, where they had intercepted 3 pirate vessels attempting to raid civilian transports. Morrison had led the boarding parties personally, his tactical expertise turning what could have been a bloody firefight into a swift, decisive victory. The pirates now sat in the brig, their ships impounded, and the civilian crews safe. Morrison paused at an intersection, consulting his tablet for the evening duty roster. The ship ran smoothly under his watch, but he made it his practice to conduct random inspections throughout all shifts. A well-run vessel required constant attention to detail, something he had learned during his years climbing through the ranks. As he rounded the corner toward engineering deck, Morrison nearly collided with a figure emerging from a maintenance alcove. His reflexes, honed by years of combat training, kicked in instantly. Without thinking, he grabbed the person's shoulders and pushed them against the nearest bulkhead, his body blocking any escape route. "What are you doing in a restricted area?" Morrison's voice carried the sharp edge of authority. "State your name and assignment." The figure before him appeared to be a young woman, perhaps in her mid-20s, wearing standard fleet coveralls that bore no visible rank insignia. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her green eyes met his without flinching despite being pinned against the wall. Most crew members would have stammered an explanation by now, but she remained calm, almost amused. "I was checking the plasma flow regulators," she said, her voice steady. "The readings showed some fluctuations that needed investigation." Morrison's grip tightened slightly. Something about her manner irritated him. She showed no proper deference, no recognition of his authority. "I asked for your name and assignment. Engineering personnel don't conduct maintenance during night cycles without proper authorization." "The plasma flows don't follow duty schedules," she replied, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Physics operates 24 hours a day, Commander." The casual way she addressed him set Morrison's teeth on edge. He pressed closer, using his height advantage to intimidate. "You'll address me as Lieutenant Commander, and you'll answer my questions properly. This is the last time I'll ask nicely." "Riley," she said simply, "and I have every authorization I need." Morrison studied her face, searching for signs of deception. Her features were delicate but determined, with high cheekbones and a stubborn chin. She didn't look like typical engineering crew, most of whom bore the calloused hands and oil-stained fingernails of their trade. Her hands, he noticed, were clean and smooth. "Riley what, and authorization from whom?" Morrison demanded. "I know every member of this crew and I don't recognize you." "Just Riley for now," she said. "As for authorization, I think you'll find my clearance is quite sufficient." The way she spoke suggested education and breeding, not the typical background of enlisted engineering personnel. Morrison had encountered his share of academy graduates who thought their education exempted them from military protocol, and this Riley person seemed cut from the same cloth. "I don't care what academy you graduated from or whose daughter you think you are," Morrison said, his voice low and dangerous. "On this ship, you follow military protocol. You wear proper identification, you follow duty schedules, and you show proper respect to superior officers." Riley's eyebrows rose slightly. "Superior officers?" "That's right. I'm the executive officer of this vessel, second only to Captain Bradley in authority, and right now, you're in violation of about 6 different regulations." Morrison reached for his communicator. "Security to engineering deck. I have an individual who needs to be escorted to the brig for questioning." "That won't be necessary," Riley said, still maddeningly calm. "Though I appreciate your dedication to security protocols." Before Morrison could respond, footsteps echoed through the corridor. Chief Petty Officer Martinez appeared, followed by 2 security personnel. Martinez had served under Morrison for 3 years and knew his commanding officer's moods better than most. "Sir," Martinez said, coming to attention, "you called for security." Morrison gestured toward Riley without releasing his grip on her shoulders. This individual was found in a restricted area without proper authorization. No visible rank, claims to be checking plasma regulators during night cycle, and refuses to provide proper identification. Martinez looked past Morrison to see Riley's face, and his expression changed dramatically. The color drained from his features as he snapped to rigid attention. "Ma'am," Martinez said, his voice barely controlled. "I apologize for any confusion, sir, if I might suggest." "What's wrong with you, Martinez?" Morrison interrupted. "This is a security matter. I want her taken to the brig until we can sort out her identity and what she was doing in that maintenance area." Riley finally spoke, her voice carrying a note of gentle authority that made Morrison's spine stiffen. "Chief Martinez, perhaps you could explain the situation to the lieutenant commander." Martinez swallowed hard, sweat beading on his forehead, despite the ship's comfortable temperature. "Sir, with respect, I think there may be some misunderstanding about." "There's no misunderstanding," Morrison cut him off. "I have an unidentified individual in a restricted area and I want answers, now." The two security personnel behind Martinez exchanged glances, their discomfort obvious. One of them, Petty Officer Chen, took a small step forward. "Sir," Chen said carefully, "perhaps we should contact the captain." Morrison's irritation flared. "I don't need the captain's permission to maintain security on this vessel. Martinez, I gave you an order." Riley sighed softly. "Commander Morrison, while I admire your vigilance, I think you should know that Captain Bradley is currently in his quarters, reviewing the mission reports I submitted earlier this evening." Something cold settled in Morrison's stomach. "You submitted mission reports?" "Among other things," Riley said. "I've been quite busy since coming aboard. Your crew has been most helpful in bringing me up to speed on the Meridian's operations." Morrison's mind raced. Mission reports were classified documents, accessible only to senior officers with proper clearance. If this woman had access to such materials, it meant either a serious security breach or something he was missing entirely. "Martinez," Morrison said slowly, "who is this woman?" The chief looked like he wanted to disappear into the deck plating. "Sir, I think it would be better if—" "Answer the question, Chief." Martinez took a deep breath. "Sir, this is Admiral Riley Blackwood." The words hit Morrison like a physical blow. He felt his grip on Riley's shoulders loosen involuntarily as the implications crashed over him. Admiral Blackwood. Fleet Admiral Blackwood. The youngest flag officer in fleet history, the strategic genius who had revolutionized naval doctrine, the woman whose tactical innovations had saved entire star systems from enemy occupation. Morrison's hands dropped to his sides as he stepped back, his face burning with embarrassment and something approaching panic. Fleet Admiral Blackwood regarded him with those same calm green eyes, now holding a hint of sympathy for his obvious distress. "Admiral," Morrison managed, his voice hoarse, I didn't realize." "Of course you didn't," Admiral Blackwood said gently. "That was rather the point." Morrison's training took over, muscle memory forcing him into a rigid position of attention. "Admiral, I apologize for my conduct. I had no idea of your identity or your presence aboard this vessel." "At ease, Commander," Admiral Blackwood said. "And please don't apologize for doing your job. Your security consciousness is exactly what I hoped to observe." The corridor had grown quiet except for the steady hum of the ship's systems. Martinez and the security personnel remained frozen in awkward silence, uncertain whether they should retreat or remain. Morrison felt sweat running down his back beneath his uniform jacket. "Ma'am," Morrison said carefully, "might I ask why you're aboard the Meridian? Captain Bradley made no mention of a flag officer inspection." Admiral Blackwood smiled, and Morrison noticed how it transformed her entire face. "Because Captain Bradley doesn't know I'm here. Neither does anyone else in the fleet command structure." Morrison's confusion deepened. "Ma'am." "I'm traveling incognito, Commander. Call it an unofficial inspection, or perhaps a fact-finding mission. The Admiralty has been receiving reports about conditions in the outer rim that don't match the official assessments. I wanted to see the situation for myself." "Without informing the chain of command." Sometimes the most accurate picture emerges when people aren't trying to impress their superiors, Admiral Blackwood explained. Your crew's performance today against those pirates, for instance. Textbook tactics, flawless execution, minimal casualties. Exactly the kind of competence we need in this sector. Morrison felt a flush of pride at her words, though confusion still dominated his thoughts. How long have you been aboard, Admiral? 3 days. I transferred from a supply ship at the Kepler Station rendezvous. Your logistics officer processed my papers as a temporary engineering consultant, which gave me access to the technical areas where I could observe operations without drawing attention. The audacity of it took Morrison's breath away. A fleet admiral, the highest-ranking officer in the entire Navy, had been walking the corridors of his ship for 3 days while he remained completely unaware. The security implications alone should have been staggering, yet somehow she had managed it flawlessly. Your disguise was quite effective, ma'am, Morrison said, trying to maintain some dignity despite his earlier behavior. It was until you decided to interrogate me, Admiral Blackwood replied with another smile. Though I must say, your response was exactly what I hoped to see. Too many ships have grown lax in their security procedures. The fact that you personally conduct random inspections during night cycles speaks well of your leadership. Morrison's mind struggled to process the surreal turn his evening had taken. 20 minutes ago, he had been conducting routine shipboard duties. Now he stood in a corridor, having physically restrained the most powerful officer in the fleet while she complimented his security awareness. Ma'am, what are your orders regarding this situation? Morrison asked. Admiral Blackwood considered the question. For now, maintain the status quo. I'd prefer to complete my observations before revealing my presence to Captain Bradley and the crew. Can I count on your discretion? Morrison glanced at Martinez and the security personnel who had remained silent throughout the exchange. What about them? Chief Martinez has been aware of my identity since yesterday, Admiral Blackwood said. He recognized me during a previous inspection tour. As for Petty Officers Chen and Rodriguez, I'm confident they understand the importance of operational security. Both security personnel nodded vigorously, still appearing somewhat stunned by the evening's revelations. Very well, ma'am, Morrison said. Your secret is safe, but might I suggest some adjustments to your cover? If you're going to continue moving through restricted areas, you'll need proper documentation that won't raise flags with other officers. Actually, I was hoping you might assist with that, Admiral Blackwood said. Your reputation for attention to detail suggests you'd know exactly what credentials would pass inspection. Morrison found himself nodding before fully considering the implications. Helping a fleet admiral maintain an undercover identity was hardly standard procedure. But then again, nothing about this situation qualified as standard. I can arrange temporary engineering credentials that would explain your presence in sensitive areas, Morrison offered. And perhaps we could establish a communication protocol in case you encounter situations requiring immediate command intervention. Excellent thinking, Commander. I appreciate your adaptability. The compliment sent an unexpected warmth through Morrison's chest. Throughout his career, he had strived for recognition from superior officers, but praise from Fleet Admiral Blackwood carried weight beyond anything he had previously experienced. If I may ask, ma'am, what specific aspects of operations are you observing? Admiral Blackwood's expression grew more serious. Command dynamics mostly, how decisions flow through the hierarchy, how junior officers handle authority, how the crew responds to stress. The engagement with those pirates provided an excellent test case. Morrison felt a chill. If Admiral Blackwood had been observing command performance during combat, his own actions would have been under intense scrutiny. Every decision, every order, every tactical choice would have been evaluated by the Navy's premier strategic mind. How did we perform, ma'am? Morrison asked, uncertain whether he wanted to hear the answer. Admirably, your boarding party tactics were sound, your crew coordination was seamless, and your post-engagement procedures followed doctrine precisely. Captain Bradley should be proud of his executive officer. Relief flooded through Morrison, followed immediately by a new concern. Will your observations become part of our official record? That depends on several factors I'm still evaluating, Admiral Blackwood said diplomatically. But I can tell you that nothing I've observed so far would reflect poorly on any member of this crew. Martinez cleared his throat softly. "Ma'am, sir, should we return to our duties?" Morrison looked to Admiral Blackwood, who nodded. "Yes, Chief, and remember our discussion about discretion." "Understood, ma'am," Martinez replied, leading the security personnel back toward their patrol route. As they disappeared around the corner, Morrison found himself alone with Admiral Blackwood in the humming corridor. The surreal quality of the situation hadn't diminished, but he was beginning to adapt to the new reality. "Admiral, might I ask about your engineering cover story? Your knowledge of plasma flow regulators seemed quite genuine." Admiral Blackwood laughed, a sound that echoed pleasantly in the confined space. "I wasn't always an admiral, Commander. I started my career in engineering, actually. Spent 4 years crawling through reactor housings and plasma conduits before transferring to tactical. Old habits die hard." The revelation added another layer to Morrison's growing respect for the woman before him. Too many flag officers had risen through administrative tracks, never experiencing the practical challenges of shipboard operations. Admiral Blackwood had clearly earned her position through diverse experience and demonstrated competence. "That explains your credibility with the engineering staff," Morrison observed. "Among other things, the crew has been quite helpful in explaining current operating procedures and maintenance challenges. Your chief engineer speaks very highly of your support for his department, by the way." Morrison felt another flush of pride. Recognition from his own crew meant more than he cared to admit, especially when conveyed through someone of Admiral Blackwood's stature. "I try to maintain good relationships with all department heads," Morrison said. "Cooperation between divisions is essential for effective operations." "Indeed it is. Too many ships suffer from interdepartmental rivalries that undermine overall performance. The Meridian appears to have avoided that trap." They began walking slowly down the corridor, their conversation continuing in the subdued lighting of the night cycle. Morrison found Admiral Blackwood surprisingly easy to talk with, her manner direct but not intimidating despite her elevated rank. "May I ask what prompted this inspection tour, ma'am? The official reports from this sector have been consistently positive." Admiral Blackwood paused, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes official reports tell us what we want to hear rather than what we need to know. The Outer Rim has been experiencing unusual pirate activity, with tactics and equipment that suggest outside support. I wanted to assess our readiness to handle emerging threats." Morrison's tactical mind immediately engaged. "Are you suggesting the pirates we encountered weren't acting independently?" "I'm not suggesting anything yet," Admiral Blackwood replied. "But their ships mounted weapons systems that shouldn't be available to typical raiders, and their coordination was more sophisticated than usual. It bears investigation." The implications sent a chill through Morrison. If hostile forces were supporting pirate operations in the Outer Rim, it could indicate preparations for larger-scale aggression. The Meridian's recent engagement might have been a probing action rather than simple opportunistic piracy. "What can the crew do to prepare for such possibilities?" Morrison asked. "Exactly what you're already doing. Maintain readiness, follow protocols, and remain alert for unusual patterns. The best defense against sophisticated threats is professional competence, which this ship displays in abundance." They reached the end of the corridor, where a large viewport offered a view of the star field sliding past as the Meridian continued its journey. Admiral Blackwood paused to gaze out at the scattered points of light, her expression thoughtful. "It's beautiful out there," she said quietly. "Easy to forget the dangers when you're looking at something so peaceful." Morrison joined her at the viewport, nodding how the starlight caught the auburn highlights in her hair. "Do you think we're heading for conflict, ma'am?" "I think we're already in conflict, Commander. The question is whether we'll recognize it in time to respond effectively." The words carried weight beyond their simple meaning. Morrison found himself studying Admiral Blackwood's profile as she continued gazing into space, noting the determined set of her jaw and the alertness in her posture, even during this moment of apparent relaxation. "Whatever comes, the fleet is fortunate to have your leadership," Morrison said. Admiral Blackwood turned to face him, and for a moment, Morrison glimpsed something beyond the professional competence and strategic brilliance. Uncertainty, perhaps, or the weight of responsibilities that few could truly understand. "Leadership is only as effective as the people it serves," she replied. "Officers like you, crews like this one, The real strength of the fleet lies in ships like the Meridian and the professionals who serve aboard them. The compliment struck Morrison more deeply than he expected. Throughout his career, he had focused on earning recognition and advancement, but Admiral Blackwood's words suggested something more important: the value of competent service regardless of rank or recognition. "Thank you, ma'am. That means more than you might realize. Good leaders recognize good leadership, Commander. What I've observed aboard this vessel gives me considerable confidence in our readiness for whatever challenges may come." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, two professionals sharing an understanding that transcended rank and protocol. Morrison realized that his encounter with Admiral Blackwood had changed something fundamental in his perspective, though he couldn't yet define exactly what. "I should return to my quarters," Admiral Blackwood said eventually. "Early morning brings another day of observations, and I suspect your crew will provide plenty to evaluate." "Yes, ma'am, and Admiral." "Yes, Commander." "It's been an honor, ma'am, truly." Admiral Blackwood smiled, that same transformation of her features that Morrison had noticed earlier. "The honor has been mine, Commander. Sleep well." She walked away down the corridor, her footsteps fading into the ship's ambient sounds. Morrison remained at the viewport for several minutes, his mind processing the evening's extraordinary events. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and responsibilities, but something had changed in his understanding of leadership, duty, and the nature of true authority. As he finally made his way to his own quarters, Morrison reflected on the irony of the situation. He had set out to maintain security aboard his ship and ended up discovering that the fleet's highest-ranking officer had been observing his every move for 3 days. The thought should have been intimidating, but instead, he felt a strange sense of validation. Admiral Blackwood had seen his crew at their best and found them worthy of respect. Whatever challenges lay ahead in the outer rim or beyond, Morrison now knew that the Meridian and her crew had earned the confidence of the Navy's premier strategic mind. The knowledge would stay with him through whatever trials awaited in the vast darkness of space. The next morning brought the familiar rhythms of shipboard life to the USS Meridian. Morrison woke before his alarm, as was his custom, and spent 30 minutes in physical training before showering and preparing for the day's duties. The previous evening's encounter with Admiral Blackwood felt almost dreamlike in the harsh light of morning, but the memory remained vivid and immediate. As Morrison made his way to the bridge for the morning watch change, he found himself hyper-aware of every crew member he passed. Knowing that Fleet Admiral Blackwood moved among them in disguise added a surreal quality to routine interactions. The engineering technician adjusting a wall panel could be discussing ship operations with the Navy's most senior officer. The maintenance worker calibrating sensors might be receiving tactical insights from the architect of modern naval doctrine. Captain Bradley stood near the main viewport when Morrison arrived on the bridge, reviewing overnight status reports on his tablet. At 52, Bradley had commanded the Meridian for 4 years, earning respect throughout the fleet for his steady leadership and tactical competence. His graying hair and weathered features spoke to decades of service, while his alert posture demonstrated continued engagement with his responsibilities. "Morning, Jake," Bradley said without looking up from his reports. "Sleep well." Morrison hesitated for just a moment, conscious that his answer might be less than entirely truthful. "Well enough, sir. Any overnight developments?" "Quiet night. Engineering reports all systems normal, sensors show clear space ahead, and our guests in the brig remain secure." Bradley finally looked up, his experienced eyes studying Morrison's face. "You seem a bit preoccupied this morning." The observation sent a spike of anxiety through Morrison. If Captain Bradley noticed unusual behavior, it could complicate Admiral Blackwood's mission. Morrison forced himself to relax, adopting the professional demeanor that had served him well throughout his career. "Just thinking about our next patrol assignment, sir. The pirate activity in this sector seems to be increasing." Bradley nodded, accepting the explanation. "I've been thinking the same thing. The raiders we captured had better equipment than typical pirates can afford. Someone's backing them, providing resources and coordination." Morrison felt a chill of recognition. Admiral Blackwood had expressed similar concerns the previous evening, suggesting that her unofficial inspection might be more urgent than he had initially realized. "What's our next destination, Captain?" "Outpost Gamma 7. They've reported increased long-range sensor contacts, possibly more pirate activity. We're to investigate and provide security assistance as needed. The tactical implications were immediately apparent to Morrison. Gamma 7 occupied a strategic position along the main shipping lanes, making it a natural target for organized piracy. If hostile forces were indeed coordinating raider activities, the outpost would be both valuable intelligence source and potential target. Estimated arrival time: 18 hours at current velocity. I want the crew at elevated readiness, but nothing obvious. If someone's watching our movements, I'd prefer they not realize we're expecting trouble. Morrison nodded, appreciating his captain's strategic thinking. The Meridian had earned its reputation through careful preparation and professional execution, qualities that would be essential if they were walking into a more complex situation than simple pirate interdiction. The morning proceeded with typical efficiency. Morrison conducted his customary inspections of key systems and departments, noting the smooth operation that characterized a well-run vessel. The crew moved with practiced precision through their assigned duties, each person contributing to the complex orchestration required to operate a starship effectively. During his visit to engineering, Morrison found himself searching for signs of Admiral Blackwood's presence. Chief Engineer Kowalski briefed him on routine maintenance activities, power distribution optimization, and upcoming system upgrades, but made no mention of consultations with temporary personnel. "How's our new engineering consultant working out?" Morrison asked casually. Kowalski's face lit up with enthusiasm. "Riley, outstanding knowledge base. She's identified 3 efficiency improvements I hadn't considered, and her understanding of plasma dynamics is exceptional. Wherever she trained, they did an excellent job." Morrison felt another surge of admiration for Admiral Blackwood's thoroughness. Not only had she maintained her cover identity, but she was actively contributing to ship operations while gathering intelligence. The complexity of operating simultaneously as Fleet Admiral and engineering consultant demonstrated remarkable capability. Any concerns about her clearance or access? None at all. Her credentials checked out perfectly, and her practical knowledge speaks for itself. I've asked her to review our power distribution protocols when she has time. Morrison made appropriate responses while mentally cataloging the information. Admiral Blackwood was clearly using her engineering background to maximum advantage, providing genuine value to the crew while observing their operations. The approach showed sophisticated understanding of shipboard dynamics and human psychology. His next stop was the security section, where Chief Martinez was briefing the morning watch. Morrison arrived as Martinez concluded his presentation on patrol procedures and threat assessment protocols. The chief's professional demeanor showed no trace of the previous evening's awkwardness, though Morrison noticed the slight tension in his posture. After dismissing the watch team, Martinez approached Morrison with a subtle nod toward his office. They entered the small compartment that served as the security department's administrative center, closing the door behind them. "Sir," Martinez said quietly, "about last evening." "What about it, Chief?" "I wanted to apologize for my reaction. I should have handled the situation more smoothly." Morrison considered the statement carefully. "Under the circumstances, I think you performed admirably. Maintaining operational security while respecting proper protocol isn't always straightforward." Martinez visibly relaxed. "Thank you, sir. I've been concerned about potential complications." "As long as everyone maintains appropriate discretion, there shouldn't be any complications. Our temporary consultant's work appears to be quite valuable." The euphemistic language felt strange, but Morrison recognized the necessity of maintaining cover even in private conversation. Admiral Blackwood's mission required absolute security, and any breach could have far-reaching consequences. "Understood, sir. Is there anything specific the security department should know?" Morrison thought about the question seriously. Admiral Blackwood's presence aboard the Meridian was undoubtedly part of a larger intelligence-gathering effort, possibly related to the unusual pirate activity they had been encountering. The security implications extended far beyond simple personnel management. Continue standard procedures, but remain alert for unusual patterns or activities. The political situation in this sector may be more complex than we've been led to believe. Martinez nodded, his expression growing more serious. Any specific threats we should watch for? Nothing definite yet, but the equipment those pirates were carrying suggests outside support, possibly from hostile forces. Keep that in mind during your briefings. The conversation continued for several minutes, covering routine security matters while both officers remained conscious of the larger context surrounding Admiral Blackwood's mission. Morrison found himself impressed by Martinez's professionalism and discretion, qualities that would be essential in the days ahead. Leaving the security section, Morrison made his way toward the mess hall for the midday meal. The ship's common areas provided opportunities to observe crew interactions and morale, factors that significantly influenced overall performance. As executive officer, Morrison made it his practice to eat with the crew regularly, maintaining visibility and accessibility. The mess hall buzzed with typical conversation as Morrison collected his meal tray. He chose a seat near the center of the compartment, positioning himself where he could observe without appearing to monitor specific individuals. The crew's mood seemed positive, with normal patterns of professional interaction and casual friendship evident throughout the room. Morrison was halfway through his meal when a familiar figure approached his table. Riley, still maintaining her engineering consultant persona, carried her tray with the same quiet confidence she had displayed the previous evening. She wore standard work coveralls that somehow managed to look more professional on her than on most crew members. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, her voice carrying just the right note of casual professionalism. "Of course," Morrison replied, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. As Admiral Blackwood settled into her seat, Morrison marveled again at the audacity of her cover operation. Here sat the fleet's most senior officer, sharing lunch in a common mess hall while maintaining the appearance of a temporary technical consultant. The complexity of the deception was staggering. "How are you finding life aboard the Meridian?" Morrison asked, maintaining his own part in the charade. "Quite impressive, actually. The crew's competence and professionalism exceed what I typically encounter on civilian contracts." Admiral Blackwood spoke loudly enough for nearby tables to overhear, reinforcing her cover story while delivering what Morrison recognized as genuine praise. "We try to maintain high standards. Captain Bradley insists on excellence in all departments. It shows. The engineering systems are beautifully maintained, and the coordination between departments is seamless. Someone's done exceptional work in developing this crew." Morrison felt a flush of pride at the indirect compliment. As executive officer, much of the responsibility for crew development and interdepartmental coordination fell to him. Admiral Blackwood's recognition of those efforts carried particular weight given her perspective on fleet operations. Their conversation continued through the meal, touching on technical subjects that reinforced Riley's engineering background while avoiding anything that might compromise her cover. Morrison found himself enjoying the intellectual challenge of the discussion, impressed by Admiral Blackwood's ability to engage authentically on complex technical subjects. As they finished eating, Admiral Blackwood leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice just enough to ensure privacy. "I've scheduled some additional system reviews this afternoon. The plasma distribution network needs attention, and I want to examine the tactical systems integration." Morrison understood the implication immediately. Admiral Blackwood intended to expand her observations into the ship's combat capabilities, probably seeking to understand how effectively the Meridian could respond to sophisticated threats. "Will you need any special access or assistance?" "I don't think so. Your department heads have been quite cooperative, and my credentials should provide adequate clearance." The casual mention of credentials reminded Morrison of his promise to arrange proper documentation for Admiral Blackwood's continued access. He would need to coordinate with the administrative section to ensure her temporary status remained unquestioned. "If you encounter any difficulties, please let me know. I want to ensure your evaluation proceeds smoothly." Admiral Blackwood smiled, her expression combining appreciation with amusement at the elaborate dance they were performing. "I'm confident everything will go well. Your crew's professionalism makes my job much easier." They rose from the table together, returning their trays to the collection station. Morrison noticed several crew members nodding respectfully to Riley as they passed, clear evidence that Admiral Blackwood had successfully integrated herself into the ship's social fabric. The afternoon brought a series of routine but essential tasks that kept Morrison busy throughout the ship. He reviewed duty schedules with department heads, approved maintenance requests, and conducted quality assurance inspections of critical systems. The Meridian operated with characteristic efficiency, each division contributing to the overall mission with practiced competence. During his visit to the tactical department, Lieutenant Walsh briefed Morrison on weapons systems status and combat readiness protocols. The ship's armament remained fully operational, with all defensive systems showing green indicators across the board. "Any concerns about our current tactical posture?" Morrison asked. "None, sir. All systems are operating within normal parameters and the crew's proficiency scores remain high. We're ready for whatever comes next." Morrison nodded, satisfied with the report, but conscious that Admiral Blackwood would likely be conducting her own assessment of the ship's combat capabilities. Her insights into tactical systems integration could provide valuable feedback for future improvements. "Has our engineering consultant requested any information about weapons systems?" Walsh looked puzzled. "Not directly, sir, though she did ask some interesting questions about power distribution during combat operations. Very knowledgeable about the energy requirements for different weapon configurations." The revelation didn't surprise Morrison. Admiral Blackwood's strategic expertise would naturally lead her to examine the relationship between power systems and combat effectiveness. Her questions probably revealed gaps or inefficiencies that the tactical department hadn't previously considered. Did her inquiries raise any concerns? Quite the opposite, actually. Her suggestions for optimizing power flow could improve our sustained firing capability by 12%. I'm planning to implement her recommendations during the next maintenance cycle. Morrison felt another surge of admiration for Admiral Blackwood's ability to contribute meaningfully while maintaining her cover. Her expertise was clearly benefiting the Meridian in practical ways, making her inspection tour a genuine win-win situation for everyone involved. The remainder of the afternoon passed without incident, though Morrison remained conscious of Admiral Blackwood's presence somewhere aboard the ship. Her invisible influence seemed to permeate every interaction, every decision, every aspect of shipboard operations. The knowledge that the fleet's premier strategic mind was observing their performance added weight to routine activities. As the evening watch approached, Morrison made his way to the bridge for the daily status briefing. Captain Bradley had assembled the senior staff to review their progress toward Outpost Gamma 7 and discuss preparations for their upcoming arrival. "Current status, number 1, Bradley asked as Morrison took his position near the command chair. "All departments report normal operations, sir. Engineering efficiency is up 3% from yesterday, tactical systems show full readiness, and crew morale remains high." Bradley nodded, pleased with the report. "Excellent. What about our arrival preparations?" "Security protocols are updated for outpost operations. Sensor sweeps are programmed for long-range threat detection, and communication procedures are established for coordination with station personnel." The briefing continued for 20 minutes, covering logistics, tactical considerations, and contingency planning for various scenarios they might encounter at Gamma 7. Morrison found himself wondering what Admiral Blackwood would make of their planning process, whether their procedures met her standards for strategic preparation. As the meeting concluded, Captain Bradley pulled Morrison aside for a private conversation. "Jake, I've been thinking about those pirates we captured. Their equipment and tactics were too sophisticated for typical raiders." Morrison felt his pulse quicken. "I agree, sir. Someone's providing them with resources and training they shouldn't have access to." "Exactly. I want you to review the intelligence files on regional threat assessments. If we're dealing with organized opposition, I need to know what we're up against." The request aligned perfectly with Admiral Blackwood's own concerns, suggesting that her unofficial inspection was addressing genuine strategic issues. Morrison's respect for both officers increased as he recognized their parallel thinking about emerging threats. "I'll have a complete analysis ready before we reach Gamma 7, sir." "Good, and Jake, keep this between us for now. I don't want to alarm the crew unnecessarily, but I want us prepared for anything." Morrison nodded, appreciating his captain's discretion while noting the irony of maintaining secrecy about threats, while Fleet Admiral Blackwood conducted her own covert investigation. The layers of hidden knowledge and parallel concerns created a complex web of information that only he seemed to perceive in its entirety. That evening, Morrison found himself again walking the corridors during the night cycle, though this time his patrol had a specific purpose. Admiral Blackwood had mentioned additional system reviews, and he hoped to encounter her again for another enlightening conversation. He discovered her in the sensor array control room, studying diagnostic displays with the focused attention of someone conducting serious technical analysis. Her coveralls were slightly rumpled from crawling through access panels, and her hair had escaped its ponytail in several places, giving her a more authentic engineering appearance. "Finding everything satisfactory?" Morrison asked quietly, ensuring they wouldn't be overheard. Admiral Blackwood looked up from her work, pushing a strand of auburn hair away from her face. "More than satisfactory. Your sensor arrays are calibrated to military specifications I haven't seen outside of flagship installations. Someone's put considerable effort into optimizing these systems." Morrison felt another flush of pride. The sensor improvements had been his initiative, implemented over several months of careful upgrades and calibration. Admiral Blackwood's recognition of those efforts validated hundreds of hours of detailed work. "I thought enhanced sensors might prove valuable in the current strategic environment," Morrison said. "You thought correctly. The detection range and resolution improvements could provide critical advantage in combat situations. Whoever authorized these modifications showed excellent judgment." Morrison realized that Admiral Blackwood was unaware of his personal involvement in the sensor upgrades. Her praise was based purely on professional assessment, making it even more meaningful than recognition based on personal knowledge. "I'm glad they meet with your approval," Morrison said simply. Admiral Blackwood returned to her analysis, but continued speaking as she worked. "The tactical integration is particularly impressive. These sensors could track multiple fast-moving targets while maintaining lock-on solutions for weapon systems. Very sophisticated work." The conversation continued for several minutes, covering technical details that revealed Admiral Blackwood's deep understanding of sensor technology and tactical applications. Morrison found himself learning new perspectives on systems he thought he knew thoroughly. "May I ask what conclusions you're drawing from your observations?" Morrison ventured. Admiral Blackwood paused in her work, considering the question carefully. "Preliminarily, I'm impressed by the overall competence and readiness I've observed. The Meridian represents the fleet at its best professional, capable, and well-prepared for complex missions. And the concerns about pirate activity. Those concerns are proving well-founded. The evidence suggests coordination and support that goes beyond simple criminal enterprise. We may be dealing with organized hostile activity disguised as piracy." The confirmation of Morrison's own suspicions sent a chill through him. If Admiral Blackwood's assessment was correct, the Outer Rim situation represented a significant strategic threat that required fleet-level response. "What does that mean for ships like the Meridian?" "It means you'll be on the front lines of whatever comes next. The quality of leadership and crew competence I've observed here gives me confidence in your ability to handle increased responsibilities." Admiral Blackwood's words carried weight beyond simple encouragement. Morrison sensed that his ship and crew were being evaluated for roles in larger strategic operations, making their performance during this period critically important. "We won't let the fleet down, ma'am." "I know you won't, Commander. The question is whether the fleet will provide adequate support for what you may face." The statement suggested political and resource challenges that Morrison hadn't previously considered. Admiral Blackwood's mission might involve not just assessing current capabilities, but determining what additional support would be needed to address emerging threats. As their conversation wound down, Morrison felt again the strange combination of professional satisfaction and personal uncertainty that seemed to characterize all his interactions with Admiral Blackwood. She had praised his ship, his crew, and indirectly his own leadership, yet her presence aboard the Meridian indicated serious concerns about the strategic situation they faced. "Thank you for your insights, ma'am. They're more valuable than you might realize." Admiral Blackwood smiled, that same transformation of her features that Morrison had noticed before. "The insights are mutual, Commander. Observing your operations has been quite illuminating." As she gathered her equipment and prepared to leave the sensor control room, Morrison realized that tomorrow would bring their arrival at Outpost Gamma 7. Whatever challenges awaited them, they would unfold under Admiral Blackwood's continued observation, adding yet another layer of complexity to an already delicate situation. The thought both excited and intimidated him as he continued his evening rounds through the quiet corridors of the sleeping ship. The USS Meridian approached Outpost Gamma 7 through the morning watch, her sensors sweeping the surrounding space for any signs of unusual activity. Morrison stood on the bridge beside Captain Bradley, both officers studying the tactical displays that showed the gradually expanding view of their destination. Gamma 7 appeared as a modest collection of structures anchored to a processed asteroid, its communication arrays and docking facilities extending like metallic branches into the void. The outpost served as a way station for civilian traffic and a monitoring post for fleet intelligence, making it strategically valuable despite its small size. Long-range sensors show normal traffic patterns, reported Lieutenant Chen from the sensor station. 3 civilian freighters in dock, 2 patrol craft on station, and standard communication traffic with passing vessels. Captain Bradley nodded, studying the readouts with experienced eyes. Any signs of the unusual activity they reported? Negative, sir, but there are some gaps in their sensor logs from the past week. Could indicate equipment problems or deliberate interference. Morrison felt a familiar tension building as they approached the outpost. The gaps in sensor data could mean technical failures, but they could also indicate sophisticated countermeasures employed by hostile forces. Given Admiral Blackwood's concerns about organized opposition, every anomaly deserved careful attention. Establish communication with Station Ops, Bradley ordered. Let them know we're beginning our approach. The communication came through clearly, with Outpost Commander Sarah Chen acknowledging their arrival and requesting a meeting with Captain Bradley upon docking. Her voice carried undertones of relief that suggested genuine concern about local conditions. As the Meridian maneuvered toward the docking clamps, Morrison found himself scanning the bridge crew for any sign of Admiral Blackwood's presence. She had mentioned continued observations during their mission to the outpost, but he hadn't seen her since their conversation in the sensor control room the previous evening. "Number 1, Bradley said quietly, I want you to accompany me to the meeting with Commander Chen. Your insights on the pirate situation could prove valuable." Morrison acknowledged the order while mentally noting that Admiral Blackwood would likely find ways to observe the outpost operations during their visit. Her ability to gather intelligence while maintaining cover continued to impress him with its thoroughness and sophistication. The docking procedure proceeded smoothly, with Meridian's crew demonstrating the professional competence that had earned Admiral Blackwood's praise. Morrison supervised the security arrangements for their visit, ensuring appropriate protocols while remaining alert for any signs of unusual activity around the outpost. Outpost Gamma 7's interior reflected the utilitarian design typical of frontier installations. Narrow corridors connected functional spaces designed for maximum efficiency rather than comfort. Commander Chen met them at the airlock, her weathered features showing the strain of recent concerns. "Captain Bradley, Commander Morrison," she said, extending her hand in greeting. "Thank you for responding to our request so quickly. I'm afraid the situation has become more complex than our initial reports indicated." Bradley's expression grew serious. "What kind of complications are we dealing with?" Commander Chen led them toward her office, speaking quietly to avoid being overheard by passing personnel. "The sensor anomalies we reported aren't equipment failures. We've detected stealth-equipped vessels operating in this sector, using technology that shouldn't be available to pirates." Morrison felt his pulse quicken. The confirmation of sophisticated opposition aligned perfectly with Admiral Blackwood's assessment and Captain Bradley's own concerns. The situation was clearly evolving beyond simple piracy into something more threatening. "Have you identified the vessels or their origins?" Morrison asked. "Partially. The stealth signatures suggest military-grade cloaking devices, possibly surplus equipment from the border wars. But the deployment patterns indicate coordination and planning beyond typical criminal operations." Commander Chen's office was cramped but organized, with displays showing local sensor readings and traffic patterns. She gestured toward a tactical screen that displayed recent detection data. This is what we've recorded over the past 2 weeks, she explained, highlighting various sensor contacts. Notice the pattern of appearances and disappearances. These aren't random encounters, someone's conducting organized surveillance of our shipping lanes. Bradley studied the data carefully, his tactical experience evident in the questions he asked about detection ranges, signal characteristics, and temporal patterns. Morrison found himself impressed by both officers' analytical approach to the emerging threat. What about local shipping? Are civilian vessels reporting any unusual encounters? That's another concern, Commander Chen replied. 3 freighters have reported equipment malfunctions during transit, but our analysis suggests electronic interference rather than mechanical failure. Someone's testing countermeasures against civilian navigation systems. The implications were clearly troubling both senior officers. Electronic warfare capabilities, combined with stealth technology, indicated sophisticated opposition with access to military-grade resources. Morrison realized that Admiral Blackwood's unofficial inspection was addressing genuine strategic concerns. "Have you reported these developments to Sector Command?" Bradley asked. Commander Chen's expression darkened. "We've submitted reports, but the responses suggest our concerns aren't being taken seriously. The official assessment is that we're dealing with enhanced pirate operations, not organized military activity." Morrison exchanged glances with Captain Bradley, both officers recognizing the disconnect between field observations and higher command assessments. The situation suggested either intelligence failures or political reluctance to acknowledge emerging threats. "What support do you need from the Meridian?" Bradley asked. "Enhanced sensor sweeps of the surrounding space, investigation of the reported interference incidents, and possibly escort duties for vulnerable shipping. We're understaffed and under-equipped to handle sophisticated opposition." The meeting continued for another hour, covering technical details of the reported incidents, analysis of stealth signatures, and coordination plans for addressing immediate concerns. Morrison found himself taking detailed notes while mentally considering how to brief Admiral Blackwood on these developments. As they prepared to return to the Meridian, Commander Chen pulled Morrison aside for a private conversation. "Commander, your reputation for tactical analysis precedes you. I'd value your honest assessment of what we're facing here." Morrison considered his response carefully, conscious that his analysis might influence operational decisions. "Based on the evidence you've presented, I believe we're dealing with organized opposition using military-grade equipment and sophisticated tactics. This goes well beyond enhanced piracy." "That's my assessment as well. The question is how to convince Sector Command that we need additional resources to address the threat properly. Document everything meticulously, establish clear patterns in the data, and request direct communication with fleet intelligence. Someone with authority needs to understand the strategic implications." Commander Chen nodded, appreciating Morrison's practical advice. "I'll prepare a comprehensive briefing based on our findings. Your support in presenting these concerns to higher command would be valuable." Morrison agreed to assist with the intelligence assessment, while privately wondering how Admiral Blackwood would factor into the larger strategic response. Her presence aboard the Meridian suggested that at least some elements within Fleet Command were taking the Outer Rim situation seriously. Returning to the Meridian, Morrison found the ship buzzing with activity as crew members conducted their own investigations of local conditions. The engineering teams were analyzing electromagnetic interference patterns, the tactical department was reviewing stealth detection protocols, and the communications section was monitoring local traffic for unusual transmissions. Morrison made his way to engineering, where Chief Kowalski was coordinating analysis efforts with several specialists. The department hummed with focused activity as technicians examined sensor data and equipment readings from affected civilian vessels. "What have you found, Chief?" Morrison asked. "Interesting patterns, sir. The interference signatures show characteristics of military jamming equipment, but with modifications that suggest civilian reverse engineering. Someone's adapted military countermeasures for broader application." Morrison studied the technical displays, noting the sophisticated analysis being conducted. "Any theories about the source?" "The modification patterns suggest border war surplus equipment that's been upgraded with newer components. Whoever's doing this has access to both military hardware and advanced civilian technology. The assessment aligned with Commander Chen's observations about stealth signatures, reinforcing the conclusion that organized opposition was operating in the sector. Morrison made mental notes to share this technical analysis with Admiral Blackwood when opportunity permitted. As he left engineering, Morrison encountered Riley emerging from a maintenance tunnel, her coveralls bearing evidence of recent work in confined spaces. She carried a diagnostic tablet and wore the focused expression of someone conducting detailed technical analysis. "Finding anything interesting in your system reviews?" Morrison asked, maintaining their established cover interaction. "Quite a lot, actually. Your ship's electronic warfare capabilities are more sophisticated than I initially realized. Someone's made significant improvements to your countermeasures suite." Morrison felt a surge of pride at the indirect praise. The U upgrades had been another of his initiatives, implemented to enhance the Meridian's survivability in contested environments. Admiral Blackwood's recognition of those improvements validated months of careful work. "Given current circumstances, those capabilities may prove essential," Morrison observed. "Indeed they may. The technical intelligence I've gathered suggests we could face opponents using advanced jamming and stealth technologies. Your preparations show excellent foresight." Their conversation continued as they walked toward a less populated section of the ship, allowing for more detailed discussion without compromising Admiral Blackwood's cover. Morrison briefed her on the meeting with Commander Chen, the evidence of organized opposition, and the disconnect between field observations and higher command assessments. "Your findings confirm my own concerns," Admiral Blackwood said when he finished. "The patterns suggest coordinated preparation for larger operations, possibly testing our responses and capabilities before launching more aggressive actions. What can be done to address the threat properly? That depends partly on convincing the right people that the threat is real and immediate. Political considerations often interfere with strategic assessments, especially when acknowledging problems requires committing additional resources." Morrison sensed the frustration behind Admiral Blackwood's diplomatic language. Her unofficial inspection tour was clearly motivated by concerns that official channels weren't adequately addressing emerging threats. "Is there anything the Meridian can do to support broader strategic objectives?" Admiral Blackwood considered the question carefully. "Continue gathering intelligence, document everything meticulously, and maintain readiness for rapid deployment. Ships like the Meridian may become essential for addressing situations that higher command hasn't yet recognized." The conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the ship's communication system. "All senior officers to the bridge. Priority traffic from Fleet Command." Morrison and Admiral Blackwood exchanged glances, both recognizing that fleet communications could carry significant implications for their current mission. They separated, with Morrison heading to the bridge while Admiral Blackwood returned to her engineering consultant duties. The bridge displayed controlled tension as Morrison arrived. Captain Bradley stood near the communications station, reviewing a message that had clearly captured his complete attention. Lieutenant Walsh and the other department heads were assembling for what appeared to be an important briefing. "Number 1, Bradley said without looking up from his tablet, "we've received new orders from Sector Command. Apparently our assessment of local threats has been vindicated." Morrison felt a chill of anticipation. "What are our instructions, sir?" "We're to establish a forward patrol base here at Gamma 7, conduct enhanced reconnaissance of surrounding space, and coordinate with other fleet units for comprehensive threat assessment. It seems someone in authority has finally taken notice of the situation." The orders represented a significant escalation in response, suggesting that Admiral Blackwood's concerns were shared by others within Fleet Command. Morrison wondered whether her unofficial intelligence gathering had influenced these developments. "What additional resources are being provided?" 2 more heavy cruisers within the week, a reconnaissance squadron, and enhanced intelligence support. We're becoming the focal point for addressing organized threats in the Outer Rim." Morrison felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The Meridian and her crew were being entrusted with significant responsibilities, validating their competence while placing them at the center of potentially dangerous operations. "Any specific intelligence about the opposition we're facing?" Bradley's expression grew grim. Limited, but concerning, Fleet Intelligence believes we're dealing with a coordinated organization using military equipment and trained personnel. The piracy angle was deliberate misdirection. The revelation confirmed Morrison's worst suspicions about the true nature of the threat. If hostile forces were using piracy as cover for organized military operations, the implications for sector security were staggering. The briefing continued for an hour, covering operational procedures, intelligence requirements, and coordination protocols with arriving fleet units. Morrison found himself appointed as liaison with Outpost Gamma 7's intelligence staff, adding another layer of responsibility to his already complex duties. As the meeting concluded, Morrison realized that Admiral Blackwood would need to be informed about these developments. Her unofficial mission was clearly connected to the emerging official response, though he couldn't determine the exact nature of the relationship. That evening, Morrison again found himself patrolling the ship during the quiet hours, hoping to encounter Admiral Blackwood for another illuminating conversation. He discovered her in the Tactical Control Center, studying combat readiness displays with the focused attention that characterized all her professional activities. "Busy evening?" Morrison asked quietly. Admiral Blackwood looked up from her analysis, pushing a strand of hair away from her face. "Quite productive, actually. Your tactical systems show remarkable integration and capability. Someone's done exceptional work in optimizing combat effectiveness." Morrison felt the familiar surge of pride at her professional assessment. "I understand we've received new orders that may put those capabilities to the test." "So I've heard. The crew seems energized by the expanded mission parameters." Morrison noted Admiral Blackwood's careful phrasing, suggesting she had observed crew reactions to their new responsibilities without directly acknowledging knowledge of operational details. "May I ask how these developments affect your own mission?" Admiral Blackwood considered the question carefully. "Let's say that certain assessments have been validated and appropriate responses are being implemented. The intelligence gathered here has proven quite valuable." Morrison realized that Admiral Blackwood's unofficial inspection had indeed influenced the fleet's official response to outer rim threats. Her presence aboard the Meridian was part of a larger strategic initiative to address security concerns that normal channels hadn't adequately handled. "Are we prepared for what's coming?" The Meridian and her crew represent the best of what the fleet can offer. Your competence, professionalism, and readiness give me considerable confidence in our ability to handle whatever challenges emerge. Admiral Blackwood's words carried the weight of professional assessment from someone uniquely qualified to evaluate fleet capabilities. Morrison felt a deep sense of satisfaction at her endorsement while recognizing the significant responsibilities it implied. "Thank you, ma'am. That means more than you realize." "The thanks are mutual, Commander. Observing your operations has reinforced my confidence in the fleet's fundamental strength. Whatever political or resource challenges we face, ships like the Meridian provide the foundation for effective response." Their conversation continued for another 30 minutes, covering technical aspects of the ship's enhanced capabilities, strategic implications of the emerging threat, and philosophical questions about leadership responsibilities in complex situations. Morrison found himself learning as much about command philosophy as tactical doctrine. As Admiral Blackwood prepared to conclude her evening analysis, Morrison ventured a personal question that had been troubling him throughout their interactions. "Ma'am, may I ask what you think of the disconnect between field observations and higher command assessments?" Commander Chen mentioned that her reports weren't being taken seriously. Admiral Blackwood's expression grew thoughtful. "Complex organizations sometimes develop blind spots, especially when acknowledging problems requires difficult decisions. That's why unofficial assessments become necessary to bypass institutional resistance and gather unfiltered intelligence." Morrison began to understand the larger context surrounding Admiral Blackwood's mission. Her unofficial inspection wasn't just about evaluating ship capabilities. It was about gathering intelligence that could cut through bureaucratic filters and political considerations. "Is that why you're here?" "Partly. Sometimes the most accurate picture emerges when people aren't trying to manage their image for superior officers. Your crew's performance, both under observation and when they thought no one was watching, provides invaluable insight into real capabilities. Morrison felt a flush of pride mixed with humility. The Meridian's crew had been under evaluation by the fleet's premier strategic mind without knowing it, and they had apparently passed with distinction. What happens next? Admiral Blackwood smiled, that same transformation of features that Morrison had come to appreciate. Next, we see how well theory translates into practice. The real test is just beginning. As she gathered her equipment and prepared to leave the tactical center, Morrison realized that his encounter with Admiral Blackwood had fundamentally changed his understanding of leadership, responsibility, and the nature of true authority. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as the Meridian assumed its expanded role in addressing outer rim threats. The knowledge that Fleet Admiral Blackwood had personally assessed his ship and found it worthy of critical responsibilities filled Morrison with determination to justify her confidence, whatever trials lay ahead in the vast darkness of space. The stage was set for the real test to begin. 3 days into their expanded mission at Outpost Gamma 7, the USS Meridian had settled into the complex rhythms of forward patrol operations. Morrison found himself managing an intricate web of responsibilities as the ship served as coordination center for reconnaissance activities, intelligence analysis, and tactical planning. The promised reinforcements had begun arriving, with the heavy cruiser USS Valiant taking up position on the system's outer perimeter and a reconnaissance squadron conducting systematic sweeps of nearby space. Morrison coordinated these activities from the Meridian's enhanced command center, which had been upgraded with additional communication and data processing capabilities. Admiral Blackwood continued her engineering consultant role with remarkable consistency, though Morrison noticed her activities had expanded to include consultations with the arriving fleet units. Her technical expertise provided valuable cover for what he now understood was high-level strategic intelligence gathering. The morning briefing brought disturbing news from the reconnaissance squadron. Commander Torres, the squadron leader, delivered his report via secure communication link, his weathered features reflecting serious concern about recent discoveries. We've identified 3 stealth-equipped vessels operating in coordinated patterns approximately 2 light hours from your position, Torres reported. The signatures match nothing in our current threat database, but the tactical formations suggest military training and discipline. Captain Bradley leaned forward, studying the tactical displays that showed the squadron's findings. Any attempts at communication or identification? Negative, sir. They've maintained strict emission silence while conducting what appears to be systematic reconnaissance of our patrol patterns. When we moved to investigate, they withdrew using sophisticated evasion tactics. Morrison felt his jaw tighten. The enemy was clearly studying fleet operations, gathering intelligence for unknown purposes while remaining beyond identification or engagement. The professionalism of their activities suggested trained military personnel rather than typical pirates. What's the assessment of their capabilities? Morrison asked. Torres consulted his notes before responding. Based on observed maneuvers, we're dealing with vessels equipped with advanced stealth systems, high-performance engines, and probably sophisticated sensor suites. They're conducting professional intelligence-gathering operations. The briefing continued for another 20 minutes, covering technical analysis of the stealth signatures, tactical assessments of observed maneuvers, and strategic implications of coordinated surveillance activities. Morrison found himself taking detailed notes while mentally preparing to brief Admiral Blackwood on these developments. As the communication ended, Captain Bradley turned to Morrison with an expression of grim determination. Number 1, I want you to coordinate with Commander Chen on enhanced security protocols. If we're dealing with organized opposition conducting intelligence gathering, we need to assume they're planning something significant. Morrison acknowledged the order while privately wondering how Admiral Blackwood would assess these latest developments. Her strategic expertise could provide valuable insights into enemy intentions and appropriate countermeasures. The next several hours brought a flurry of activity as the Meridian's crew implemented enhanced security measures and coordinated defensive preparations with the outpost. Morrison supervised these activities while maintaining awareness of Admiral Blackwood's movements throughout the ship. He found her in the Sensor Analysis Center, working alongside Lieutenant Chen to examine the technical data from the reconnaissance squadron's encounters. Her presence in the sensitive compartment would have raised security concerns under normal circumstances, but her engineering credentials provided adequate cover for the collaboration. Learning anything useful? Morrison asked, maintaining their established pattern of casual interaction. Admiral Blackwood looked up from the displays she was studying with characteristic intensity. Quite a lot, actually. The stealth signatures show some interesting characteristics that suggest modifications to standard military equipment. Morrison moved closer to examine the technical data, noting the sophisticated analysis being conducted. Any theories about the modifications? The emission patterns suggest someone has combined military stealth technology with civilian sensor enhancement, creating hybrid capabilities that exceed standard classifications. Whoever's doing this has access to diverse technical resources. Lieutenant Chen nodded agreement with Admiral Blackwood's assessment. The performance characteristics we've observed shouldn't be possible with standard equipment configurations. Someone's done remarkable engineering work. Morrison felt a chill at the implications. If hostile forces had developed superior stealth capabilities through innovative engineering, the fleet's standard detection and countermeasure systems might prove inadequate. What countermeasures might be effective against such modifications? Admiral Blackwood considered the question carefully. That depends on understanding the specific technical approaches being used. We need more detailed sensor data to identify vulnerabilities in their stealth systems. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the bridge. Commander Morrison to the bridge immediately. Priority traffic from Fleet Command. Morrison exchanged glances with Admiral Blackwood before responding to the summons. Her expression suggested she anticipated significant developments from whatever communication had arrived. The bridge atmosphere reflected controlled tension as Morrison arrived to find Captain Bradley reviewing what appeared to be a complex operational order. The communication displays showed multiple fleet units and coordination requirements that indicated major strategic initiatives. "What's the situation, Captain?" Bradley handed him the tablet containing their new orders. Fleet Command has authorized Operation Lighthouse, a comprehensive effort to identify and neutralize organized hostile activities in the Outer Rim. We're being designated as the primary coordination center. Morrison scanned the operational details, noting the extensive resources being committed to address the emerging threat. 6 heavy cruisers, 2 reconnaissance squadrons, and specialized intelligence units would operate under Meridian's coordination, making their ship the focal point of major fleet operations. When does the operation begin? 48 hours. We're to establish a command and control network, coordinate intelligence gathering activities, and prepare for possible direct engagement with hostile forces using advanced capabilities. The scale of the operation impressed Morrison while simultaneously creating anxiety about their ability to manage such complex responsibilities. The Meridian's crew was competent and professional, but Operation Lighthouse would test their capabilities in unprecedented ways. What specific role does Admiral Blackwood? What oversight will we have from Fleet Command? Captain Bradley's expression suggested he hadn't considered the question of higher-level supervision. The orders indicate we'll have significant autonomy in tactical decisions, with strategic guidance provided through normal communication channels. Morrison realized that Admiral Blackwood's presence aboard the Meridian placed them in a unique position regarding command authority and strategic oversight. Her unofficial status created interesting possibilities for operational flexibility. The briefing continued for 2 hours, covering logistics requirements, communication protocols, and tactical considerations for coordinating multiple fleet units. Morrison found himself appointed as overall operations coordinator, adding another layer of complexity to his responsibilities. As the meeting concluded, Morrison made his way to engineering, where he hoped to find Admiral Blackwood for private consultation about Operation Lighthouse. The complexity of the upcoming mission would benefit from her strategic insights and tactical expertise. He discovered her in the main engineering compartment, consulting with Chief Kowalski about power distribution optimization for enhanced sensor operations. Her technical knowledge continued to impress the engineering staff, while providing cover for her strategic assessments. "Chief, could I borrow our consultant for a few minutes? I need technical input on some operational planning." Kowalski nodded enthusiastically. "Of course, sir. Riley's insights have been invaluable for optimizing our systems. Whatever operation you're planning, her technical expertise could make the difference." Morrison led Admiral Blackwood to a private compartment where they could discuss Operation Lighthouse without compromising security or her cover identity. Her expression indicated she was already aware of the general operational parameters. "Quite an escalation from our initial patrol mission," Morrison observed. "Indeed, though not unexpected, given the intelligence patterns we've been observing. Someone in Fleet Command has clearly recognized the strategic implications." Morrison briefed her on the specific operational requirements, coordination responsibilities, and tactical challenges involved in managing multiple fleet units across extended operations. Admiral Blackwood listened with the focused attention she brought to all professional discussions. "What's your assessment of our readiness for such complex operations?" Morrison asked. Admiral Blackwood considered the question seriously. "The Meridian's crew has demonstrated exceptional competence in every area I've evaluated. Your coordination capabilities, technical expertise, and leadership quality provide a solid foundation for expanded responsibilities." "And the strategic situation? Are we prepared for what we might encounter?" "That remains to be seen. The opposition clearly possesses advanced capabilities and sophisticated planning. Success will depend on adapting quickly to unexpected developments while maintaining coordination among diverse fleet elements." Their conversation continued for an hour, covering operational details, potential contingencies, and strategic considerations for dealing with unknown but sophisticated opposition. Morrison found Admiral Blackwood's insights invaluable for understanding the larger context surrounding Operation Lighthouse. "There's something else I should mention," Admiral Blackwood said as their discussion wound down. "My unofficial status may change as operations develop. Circumstances might require more direct command involvement." Morrison felt his pulse quicken. If Admiral Blackwood revealed her true identity during Operation Lighthouse, it would fundamentally alter command dynamics and operational authority aboard the Meridian. How would such a change affect current operations? It would provide additional strategic flexibility while potentially creating political complications. The timing would need to be carefully managed to maximize operational advantage. Morrison realized that Admiral Blackwood was considering revealing herself as circumstances demanded, adding yet another variable to an already complex operational environment. The possibility both excited and intimidated him. The next day brought intensive preparation as the Meridian's crew configured their ship for its expanded coordination role. Morrison supervised the installation of additional communication equipment, enhanced data processing capabilities, and specialized coordination software required for multi-unit operations. Admiral Blackwood remained visible throughout the ship, consulting on technical modifications while observing crew performance under increased operational pressure. Her presence provided continuity and confidence during the complex preparation period. The arriving fleet units checked in throughout the afternoon, each bringing specialized capabilities and experienced personnel to Operation Lighthouse. Morrison found himself coordinating with 6 different commanding officers, each with distinct operational styles and tactical preferences. Commander Harrison of the USS Valiant brought extensive experience with electronic warfare and countermeasure operations. Commander Peters of the USS Guardian specialized in reconnaissance coordination and intelligence analysis. Commander Williams of the USS Defender had deep knowledge of tactical formations and fleet maneuvers. Each conversation required Morrison to establish working relationships, understand capabilities, and develop coordination protocols that would function under operational stress. The complexity of managing multiple command personalities added psychological pressure to the technical challenges. As evening approached, Morrison conducted his customary inspection tour, noting the controlled energy that characterized crew preparations for major operations. The ship hummed with purposeful activity as each department made final preparations for their expanded responsibilities. He found Admiral Blackwood in the communication center, reviewing the technical specifications for the coordination network they would establish. Her expertise with communication protocols added another dimension to her technical cover while providing valuable insights for operational planning. Final preparations proceeding smoothly, Morrison asked. Admiral Blackwood looked up from her analysis, nodding with satisfaction. Your crew's adaptability continues to impress me. They're handling the transition to expanded operations with remarkable professionalism. Any concerns about tomorrow's operational initiation? None about the Meridian's capabilities. The crew has demonstrated readiness for complex challenges. My concerns focus on external factors we can't control: enemy capabilities, political considerations, and resource allocation. Morrison understood the implications behind her diplomatic language. Operation Lighthouse would succeed or fail based partly on factors beyond their immediate influence, including decisions made at levels far above ship command. Whatever happens, the crew will perform to the best of their abilities. I have complete confidence in that, Commander. The question is whether their best efforts will be sufficient for the challenges we may face. Admiral Blackwood's words carried weight beyond simple encouragement. Morrison sensed that she was preparing him psychologically for possibilities that might exceed normal operational parameters. Is there anything specific I should know about potential developments? Admiral Blackwood considered her response carefully. Be prepared for rapid changes in operational requirements, possible expansion of mission parameters, and potential need for tactical innovation beyond standard doctrine. The opposition we're facing may require creative solutions. The conversation continued for another 30 minutes, covering philosophical aspects of command responsibility, practical considerations for managing complex operations, and personal strategies for maintaining effectiveness under pressure. Morrison found himself learning as much about leadership psychology as operational planning. As they prepared to separate for final evening preparations, Admiral Blackwood made a statement that caught Morrison completely off guard. Commander, I want you to know that observing your leadership during this period has been genuinely inspiring. Whatever challenges tomorrow brings, the fleet is fortunate to have officers of your caliber. Morrison felt a flush of pride mixed with humility at such praise from someone of Admiral Blackwood's stature. Thank you, ma'am. That means more than you can know. The meaning is mutual, Commander. Leaders like you make the sacrifices worthwhile. As Admiral Blackwood returned to her engineering duties, Morrison realized that Operation Lighthouse represented more than just expanded tactical operations. It was a test of leadership, competence, and the fundamental capabilities that would determine the fleet's ability to address emerging strategic threats. Tomorrow would bring the real test of everything they had prepared for during Admiral Blackwood's unofficial inspection tour. Morrison felt confident in his crew's abilities, while remaining soberly aware of the unknown challenges that sophisticated opposition might present. The stage was set for the most significant operation of his career, with Fleet Admiral Blackwood observing every decision and the entire Outer Rim's security hanging in the balance. The true test was about to begin. Operation Lighthouse commenced at 600 hours, with the USS Meridian serving as the nerve center for the most complex fleet operation the Outer Rim had seen in decades. Morrison stood on the enhanced command bridge, coordinating activities across 6 heavy cruisers and 2 reconnaissance squadrons.